So, welcome everybody to this webinar. We're joined by the team at moviinn, and we're going to be discussing the differences between moving to Spain and moving to Portugal. I think this is a very interesting topic. There are a lot of people that get in touch who don't specifically know which country they want to move to. They know they want to move somewhere with a Mediterranean lifestyle and somewhere that has attainable visas. But Portugal and Spain tick both of those boxes, even though when you get there, you'll realize they're quite different countries, but on paper, they can seem very, very similar. So today, we're going to look through 4 or 5 of the big key areas, and they all make quite a difference. So we're going to be looking at visas, first of all, which is the most important one. Can you actually move to Spain or to Portugal? Taxes, how much will you have to pay in taxes if you do move there? Healthcare, will you qualify for the public system or will you need to use a private system there? And citizenship, how long would it take for you to obtain citizenship? All of those are big, big questions, and we're going to be touching on them probably very top level. I think each of them probably could be a webinar in itself, and there's a lot more that we could discuss as well. We could discuss cost of living, we could discuss cultural differences, we could discuss how much English is spoken in each, and this would even vary from region to region in both Spain and Portugal. But for this, it's an opportunity to get a broad view of what each of the countries offers and to try and work out which one would be best for you. So I am very, very happy to have a lot of guests here today from moviinn. So we have Team Portugal with Marta and Danielle. Then we have Team Spain with Milen and Maria. Each of those are going to be discussing the immigration questions, the tax questions that you've had, and we're going to run through those now, starting perhaps with an introduction to moviinn first of all. Maybe Marta could come on and let us know what moviinn does, how it can help you move to either Spain or Portugal. I'm just going to share my screen, Marta, for that, but you can start talking.
Of course. Hello, everybody. Very nice to meet you, and thank you very much for joining us today. So, moviinn is a relocation platform, is a startup which basically provides service in order for citizens to move. Right now, we operate in Portugal and Spain, and our main goal is always to simplify your relocations and moves, not only in regard to the relocation process itself, but all the little topics and requests that come along with that. And because of that, we can basically divide our assistance in 3 big areas: the research and planning, the first box that you can see here, the relocation support, and right after the resettling. In the very first stage, the research and planning, this is, for example, if you are looking for a house, the looking for the house itself, city scouting, investment activities you may seen or analyze for your current situation. On the relocation support is actually the visa support or the real estate solution or the essential service, for example, obtaining the NIF or the social security number that apply. This differs from your specific situation. And has the last stage, the resettling, is the support needed on the upfront situations, for example, educations or utility setup. And that's
Okay,
it.
fantastic. Thank you so much for that. And I just want to say that if anybody has any questions, please put them in the Q&A section, which is in the Zoom panel. It's much easier for us to see the questions there and to respond to them. And if we're not able to respond to them on time, it means that people can follow up with you directly. If you put them in the chat, they kind of get lost. So the chat is really, really good for just saying hello to everybody there, but for specific questions, try and put them in the Q&A. And now I think we can jump right into the main topic here, which is residency visas. So let's start off with the D7 for Portugal and the non-lucrative visa for Spain. These are sort of considered the retirement visas or the passive income visas for both. So they will typically attract those who have investments or a pension or US Social Security. Let's start off with Portugal, first of all. Seeing as this is a Portugalist webinar, let's look at the requirements for the D7 visa. Marta, I think you'll be back on for this one.
Of course. So the D7 visa corresponds to the passive income visa for residence purpose. And under this category, this includes, just like James mentioned, the retirement purpose or through investments. The main purpose of this category is to allow foreign citizens to live in Portugal based on their foreign income, passive income. The very important topic here is about the minimum requirements in terms of how much we need to prove as income to be able to obtain this document. The law doesn't specify in specifically the minimum amount for this visa against others that I will clarify afterwards. So we need to consider the amount that is the minimum salary in Portugal, and that is 870. So this is the minimum that the main applicant needs to present. However, in order to present the best solid process with the Portuguese authorities, we always suggest to have the proof of this income multiplied by 12, so 1 year. This amount adds up when we intend to move with family members. If it is an adult, so a spouse, we need to present also 50% of the main applicant's income. If it is with a spouse and a child, it is more 50% for the spouse and then 30% for the kid. If we are adding more kids, it's again 30%. So as a summary, it is 817 per month for the main applicant, an increase of 50% for the family member when it is the spouse, the adult, and then for the children, more 30% per application, per kid.
Okay, perfect. And one question I have is, can you work on the D7 visa either for a Portuguese company or remotely?
Okay, so the Portuguese law does not state specifically which visas and residence permits can or not work. Therefore, all visas allow you to work in Portugal, and all visas also allow you to relocate your family with you. Obviously, there are limits in terms of families. It's not, for example, to all family members. It's more the immediate ones. But yes, you can work and you can locally or remotely, and you can also relocate your family. And another document that is really relevant is the proof of accommodation. At the time of the visa submission, we should present a proof of accommodation in Portugal for at least 12 months. So normally applicants present a rental contract with that same duration.
Okay, perfect. And let's see what other questions I have. Let's talk about healthcare as well. So if you are a D7 permit holder, if you go through the D7 process, can you use the public healthcare system, and do you need private health insurance as well?
That is a very good question because right now we are seeing some change on the procedure from authorities. To apply for the visa, you do not need to have the public health care number, neither the private health insurance. You will need to have a travel insurance. However, when you move for the residence permit part, so in terms of immigration process, outside Portugal, you apply for the visa. Once that is issued and you move to Portugal, you move for the second phase of the immigration process, which is the residence permit. And at that stage, you will need to have or the social security number, the public healthcare system, or the private health insurance number. So it's the goal here is to prove that if you need anything in terms of healthy, you are covered by it.
Okay, perfect. I think that gives a good overview. Sorry.
And the key point that I mentioned in terms of the change that we are now seeing with authorities are actually related to the renewals. So if you, for example, at the first application of the residence permit, present the private health insurance and therefore you don't have the public health care number, up until the renewal, right now we are seeing authorities to request it either way. So it's better to act in front and requests immediately.
Okay, perfect. So 870 euros for an individual. You can add family members to it, certain ones, not your entire extended family. You need savings, and I think you recommended 12 months, so 870 times 12 for an individual. You can work locally and remotely, because it's not as explicitly stated that you can't. You need to have an address in Portugal. I think you said that before you apply, and you can use the public healthcare system once you're registered for it, but you need to have some form of healthcare at least, if and that could be private. Does that sort of summarize the D7 visa, would you say?
Yes, perfect. All correct.
Okay, top marks for me then. Right, let's have a look at the non-lucrative visa then, which is Spain's version. So I think we have, let's see, who do we have? Who's going to discuss this one? Sylvia, you are on mute.
Hi everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us. Very interesting the view from Portugal. In Spain, everything is a little bit different in that way. Okay, non-lucrative visa is granted for those who has no need for working in Spain. They won't be allowed to work in Spain. Not the holder, not the additional family associated to the permit. Okay, that's very clear. So even for obtaining that kind of visa of a residency permit, really, that it's granted for 1 year, uh, savings are needed, or a pensionist, or passive incomes, okay? Not incomes relating a job. That is very important because for working, there is another figures, another procedures that will allow the person to work in Spain in case of need. There is another specific procedures to work as an employee or as a self-employer. But for non-lucrative, it's very clear that the person won't be allowed, okay? At least to have obtained that visa. In the future, when it's settled in Spain, always they can, if the circumstances change, because the person found a work offer or wants to start up a business, it can be modified, okay? It's important to know that it's not a one-way ticket, okay? That once you obtain a permit in Spain, you can jump, okay? As long as your circumstances change, as long as the law also change and give some other chances, or cut off, okay, the way that was open, as it happened with the investors visa, golden visa, that is not longer available. So that's for starting. As for the amounts to show, here the base when the administration, our immigration office calculates, okay, the base for a holder to get the non-lucrative visa is not under the minimum wage salary, but on another base that it's called IPREM, okay? And they're asking 400% of IPREM that annually goes to up to 29,000 euros, okay? Only the holder. For each additional member, you have to add a 100% of that same base, economic base, that in the practice for 2025 is 7,200 euros, okay? So as much member of the family it's moving, as much as the quantity needs to be proven, okay, demonstrate. Having said so, having said so, uh, the holders and the family won't have any access to Spanish public health system because they did not contribute to our system. But if something happens in the hospital, they won't not be denied the assistance, but they will be billed. So that's why it's important that with that visa, it will be needed a specific medical insurance, okay, that at least cover the basis that our system offers, that it's a primary assistance, specialized assistance, hospitalization, and also repatriation. It's advisable, okay? Also, uh, just trying to follow the points that were mentioned in Portugal to make a comparison. It was something that I wanted to mention that I did not write it down. Sorry.
That's right.
I
I can
was
ask
just
you some
paying
questions.
attention, but it just went out. But if you can refresh me, I will.
It
The
may
three
have
main
been what
points.
it may have been whether there was a savings requirement. I don't know if you mentioned that. That is one. Another one is let's see, having an address in
Oh,
Spain.
that's it. We are not our the immigration office, the consulate, okay, because this kind of visa is cannot be applied being in Spanish territory. Firstly, needs to be when you are outside of Spanish territory, and you need to apply in front of the Spanish consulate that corresponds to your address where you are living, okay. And they won't require you upfront a rent contract. Okay, you can get a temporary residency for just normally people, unless they know the country or they really know the area where they are going to live because they visited in the past. Normally, get a temporary renting just to finally deciding where to settle. But it's important to have a domicile, to provide a domicile, but it's not a specific requirement. Um, but I'm going to open here a little bit quote, okay? And this probably may sound a little bit strange, but it's not for us, okay? Uh, Even that the notion and the normative, the law that holds all this together, it's national and it's to be done ordinarily, how do you say, in order and similar in every consulate that Spain has all over the world. We normally face that each consulate have sometimes specifications, okay? Because they are more proxy to the reality of that local territory, and sometimes they are asking additional requirements where, for example, I'm just making an example, when we are moving with a non-lucrative visa with minors, with children under age, here we need the scholarization, it's mandatory from 6 to 16 years old, okay? It's mandatory by law. So sometimes they want to check, that you already have somehow organized in which school the kids are going to be in the next course, or if the course is already started, okay? And it's not in the specifications of the requirement, but it's normally asked. And like that, it can happen with some other circumstances. It depends on the consulate also.
Okay, so some similarities, I think, to Portuguese consulates there. Then that they have more power to request things than you would expect. It sounds like there's pros and cons to the Spanish non-lucrative visa versus the D7. It's some of the requirements, like whether you can work or not, seem to be much more set in stone. versus Portugal, but some things seem to be more flexible. What you mentioned about the getting accommodation before you move, that seems like it's slightly easier than Portugal's one. So pros and cons to both, I think, certainly.
Hmm. I do agree. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's jump on to digital nomad visas, unless there's anything that anybody wants to say further on this D7 or the non-lucrative one. Let's jump back to Marta and let's do the digital nomad visa for Portugal. I think this is a very interesting visa in both countries, really, because it allows people who can work remotely or freelance to basically to move to an EU country, something that really we didn't think would be, possible maybe 10 years ago. It has now become a reality for more and more people. So Marta, perhaps you could talk us through the digital nomad visa or the D8, I believe it's officially called, and what that entails.
Of course, and you touched a good point. And the digital nomad visa, it's in a way very recent in the Portuguese legislation, and through all my experience, it was the time where authorities were quicker to implement this in the law. So it shows really not only a way of the authorities to try to catch up with the society, but really how the world is moving forward in terms of visas and trying to accompany our own work environment situations. In terms of the requirement, so here it's a little bit different. There is indeed a financial requirement to submit the digital nomad visa, also known for D8. The main applicant should present a monthly income of 3,480 euros. And they need to prove this according to the three last pay slips or invoice. So if I'm a worker, if I'm a citizen working to a foreign company, I need to present the three last pay slips, each one including at least this amount, 3,480 euros. And then if we are moving with our families, the same logic applies. An increase of 50% if it is for the spouse, or sorry, when speaking about the D7, I didn't mention this. Under the spouse figure, we can also consider a partner living in the stable union if you have the proof of that stable union for longer than 2 years. So in terms of financials, it is an increase of 50% for the spouse or partner and 30% per kid. But indeed, this is the mandatory requirement for the main applicant. So it's way higher than the D7. In terms of the other aspects, we also discussed it for the D7. For the healthcare, it's also the same logic. It's not necessary to present the public healthcare number or the private health insurance at the visa process, but it is necessary to present the travel insurance, and the travel insurance should be under the name of each applicant. So if I'm applying for the main applicant, spouse and kid, each one should be included on the travel insurance. When we move for the residence permit, the same logic applies again, which is you can request the public healthcare number or provide a proof of private insurance in Portugal. In terms of proof of accommodation, at the time of the visa, it is once again necessary to present the proof of accommodation for 12 months. Okay. One last topic that it's maybe relevant since we are already in October 2025. These financial requirements, both for D7 and D8, might change a little bit in 2026. We do not know yet those amounts because this always depends on the annual amount for the minimum salary, and that is published every year in December of the last year or January of the same year. Okay.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for that. That's really, really helpful. So a big difference then from the D7, which fairly attainable, this 4 times higher. It gets quite difficult when you start adding a spouse or children onto it to have that kind of income. Thank you very much for that. I think that's all the questions we have for on that. Let's jump over to the digital nomad visa in Spain with Sylvia, and let's do a comparison to see what that involves and if it's harder or easier.
Okay, I'm going to try to simplify it as much as possible. Okay, just for starting, in Spain, a digital nomad is not just a person who is working remotely. Okay, normally that generates some confusion. So our normative is distinguished two kind of cases, depending of if the digital nomad is an employee or if it's a self-employer, self-contractor. Okay, or the administration of has their own company. Okay, only an so that is the distinction because uh, it's a little bit complex. Depending if you are an employee, you will have to demonstrate also that you have a relationship with a company or companies that you are working for. You cannot apply if your clients are individuals. Okay, you have to have clients as a company or companies. Okay, so for example, sometimes there is some consultations about professionals, for example, psychologists or someone who can do their work online, but their clients are individuals. So that person, even that can be working online, will not be eligible for be a digital nomad here in Spain. Okay. I think that's a good example. So for make that distinction, um, even well, even also if you are a self-employee, self-contractor, you need to demonstrate also that you provide services for company or companies. Web developer, someone who has managed technology and works remotely for a company. It's someone who it's a very ordinary profile for this kind of visa, and it's eligible. Okay. Common thing between both of them, the person needs to have high studies, high academic degree, or at least demonstrate 3 years of experience in the same field that they are going to implement, develop here in Spain. That is very important, okay? Because needs to be proved. As for the seniority doing that activity, even if it's through work contract or through a self-contractor, at least a seniority of 3 months is required. So the person has to be linked at least 3 months with the company who wants to authorize somehow that the person moves to Spain to work remotely, okay? Because that's also a requirement, the authorization of the company, okay? And that depending if Spain has agreement in the area of social security with the country where the person comes from, okay, things get more complex or not. Our social security will be covered or not, or covered partially or not, okay? Normally, what we normally found is that the person needs to subscribe medical insurance when they are employees of the company, unless the company inscribe itself here in the Spanish Social Security. That it's a preliminary procedure, a bit more bureaucratic, but it's possible, okay? When the person is going to be a self-contractor here, what we call empresario autónomo, okay? Then Social Security will be granted with the granted, and it's only needs to be signed a compromise, okay? That you will just register yourself as a self-employee here with the Social Security in Spain. Okay, that for the basic requirements. For the economical means that needs to be demonstrated in opposition of the non-lucrative visa, here the quantities are taking, the base is the minimum wage salary in double. Okay, so in terms of money, the main holder, okay, needs to demonstrate uh, around 33,200 euros annually. Okay, that is 2,800 euros monthly, approximately. Okay, just to have the round numbers. And for each family who is for additional relative who comes, linked to that permit, it's a 75%. Okay, so it's increased less than for the non-lucrative visa. Okay, but also the base of the economical is higher than the non-lucrative visa. That in that part, the thing is that the person, the holder, will be allowed to work, and the family who has the spouse or the stable partner, they will have also the right to work as an employee or as an employer, okay, to start up a business. Accommodation upfront is not required, okay, and as I mentioned, the circumstances of insurance, no, of having insurance and social security will depend on where the person, when from where we are starting. Okay, if it's as an employee or self-employer, if Spain has social security agreement, international agreement with that country. Okay.
Okay.
I won't forget to say that also as in the case in Portugal, okay, every year in the first quarter, normally the quantities of reference increase. We don't know yet how much. They don't do it very high. They normally it's a moderate, but year by year normally get increase.
Okay, thank you for that. There was a lot of really helpful information in there, Sylvia. Marta, before we go on, I just had two questions for you, just based on the Spanish digital nomad visa. Firstly, do you need a degree or seniority to qualify for the Portuguese digital nomad visa? And secondly, I can't remember if you mentioned savings for it, but if you didn't, could you please mention if there are any required?
For the digital nomad visa. So no, for the digital nomad visa, you do not need any degree or any seniority on your job. It's basically based on the work that you are doing. And it can be under an employment contract or a service agreement. The academic background only applies for the high qualified visa, which is submitted under the work visa, and therefore it's directly to work with a Portuguese company here, so not remotely. In terms of the savings for the digital nomad visa, no, it is not needed as long as we present the 3 last pay slips or invoices under the minimum threshold, which is the 3,480 years. That's okay.
Okay, perfect. That is really, really helpful. Thank you so much. And actually, I may just ask you now, because we're going to very briefly cover the golden visa. Spain, I believe, got rid of theirs earlier this year. So we'll just be focusing very briefly on the Portuguese one. Marta, what is Portugal's golden visa? Why would someone choose this over, say, the D7 or the digital nomad visa?
It is a very interesting question, and the main benefit from the golden visa that other visa categories do not grant you, it's actually the minimum stay. While for any other visa category, the holder of it should live in Portugal. And actually, if after the visa, the issuance of the residence permit, they stay away from Portugal 6 consecutive months or 8 interpolated months, they can lose the right to the permit. This during the validity of the permit, which is 2 years. Differently, for the golden visas, you only need to stay in Portugal 7 days per year. So it's basically to say having a short vacation in Portugal for 1 week. And this is also applied to your family members. So until now, I have been mentioning the family unification for the visa categories. The difference for the family unification for these visa categories and family unification under the golden visa is exactly because the family members also benefit from the minimum stay of 7 days per year. Other benefits from the golden visa is basically the Schengen area access, the family inclusion I already mentioned, and the dual citizenship, which we will tackle later on about the citizenship process as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for that. And Sylvia, I saw you shaking your head there when I said Spanish Golden Visa. Is there anything at all that is similar to the Spanish Golden Visa, or is it just completely gone?
It's completely gone, and it seems that it's not coming back. I'm sorry.
Okay, it's not coming back. Um, well, thank you for that. Let's jump on then to taxes, I think, because that is our next topic here. So, before we do that, I will just show you one slide actually, and let me see if I can pull that up. I'm going to look at the key differences that are between the two visas. Let's see if I can pull it up. I don't know if that is showing for everybody, the key differences slide. No. There we go. Okay, so key differences then being the processing time. So maybe Sylvia, you could mention there how long it typically takes to process a D7 or a digital nomad visa. And are there differences between whether you apply through a consulate or I think with the digital nomad visa, you can actually apply in Spain?
Yeah. Digital nomad visa is one of the fast track procedures that we have. And normally, once everything, all the you have all the document, no, of the file to be submitted in front of the immigration office, it takes 20 days. And as you said, there is two ways to apply for a digital nomad visa. Being in your country of residency through the Spanish consulate, then you apply there for the visa, and you will grant, if you fulfill the requirements, a visa for 1 year validity. So during that period, you can just come to Spain to establish yourself and convert that visa for an authorization permit that you will have to somehow duplicate the submission, because you will need to submit again, but in front of the Spanish immigration office, and that takes 20 days. The process of visa takes like 10 days. Okay. If you want to apply directly from Spanish territory, you can do it being as a tourist or with another kind of with another type of stay or residency visa in case that you want to modify yours. And then you will save up the procedure in front of the consulate, but it's a little bit more risky because normally that we are more adjust to the temporal terms. So everything we have to make sure that everything that you fulfill the requirements, not to um, mess with times that we will have in case that something goes wrong.
Okay, fantastic. And Marta, in terms of processing time for the D7 and the digital nomad visa, what would someone be looking at? And does it vary, say, from country to country or consulate to consulate?
Yeah, it changed from country to country and even within the country from consulate to consulate. Legally speaking, once you submit the application, authorities have 60 days for the visa categories we discussed to issue the visa. However, it's very common for them to take 3-4 months. Especially if we are discussing countries, for example, right now, United States, where they are receiving a lot of applications per day. After that, and the foreign citizen moves with the residence permit, the residence permit is followed with an appointment already in Portugal with our main immigration authorities, which is IMA. And once we submit the application, authorities have 90 days, so 3 months to issue the permit. It is also common that they take 90 days, it's 3 months, and they usually take 5 months to issue it.
Okay, good to know. Let's move on to taxes then, which I think is going to be very interesting, probably quite complex, and it is one of those things that can vary depending on the individual. Everybody's taxes can be slightly different, particularly depending on the country that you're moving to. I shared in the chat that moviinn are offering a free consultation to anybody thinking about Spain versus Portugal. If you are interested in that, and particularly if you have a tax situation that could be complex, that is worth taking advantage of. I will put that in the chat again. But while I do that, let's move on to taxes then and see what's involved in that. So perhaps we'll start with Portugal and see what does it take to be a tax resident in Portugal. What are the tax benefits? Are the incentives available? Daniel, I believe you are the expert on this one, so I will have you come on for that.
Hello, everybody, and thanks to James for this enlightening introduction. Because in fact, each person has a particular situation, so we need to evaluate it beforehand. So we need to do a tailor-made kind of financial plan, and of course, tax-wise, because there is no size fits you all. So basically, we need to start from there in the very beginning. Well, in order for anyone to qualify as a tax resident in Portugal, the first step, of course, it's after the immigration process have started, and after the immigration officers give you the final, let's say, stamp allowing you to move to Portugal, it's when we can start counting the 183 days in order for be eligible for filing your taxes here in Portugal. So basically, someone that move, let's say, on the first semester of the year will be eligible for filing global taxes here in Portugal. Okay. However, someone that might be moving to Portugal on the second semester of the year, depending if there is any Portuguese source of income, there's might be the possibility to not need to be filing taxes here, let's say, for the first year. Okay, so this is very important to have in mind, because we will need to figure it out if it's this person or these individuals have spent more or less than 183 days. Okay, so after that, it's when we will be able to understand the tax liabilities, and when it's in fact starting triggering their tax liabilities in here. After that, of course, we will need to understand the types of income streams that this person has. It is related to income from abroad, such as salary income, freelancing income, dividends or capital gains, or any other possibilities of passive income, such as rentals from properties that this person owns abroad. So this is very important to understand and to qualify and to make the proper tax frame to each individual. Okay, so that's why I'm saying once again, I'm sorry to be repetitive to this, but which case it's one single case, and we need to look it very carefully in order to find out the best tax structure for any of you. Having said that, of course, there is some tax beneficials here in Portugal that we can explore. But one of the questions that people usually has a lot, it's there is any exit tax or there is any wealth tax? Let me answer that right away. So the part of the exit tax, usually there is no exit tax unless that, of course, you need to sell your properties that you might own here in Portugal. Okay, so there is, let's say, the only possible exit tax that people might need to face based on the fact that if it generates a capital gain through the selling of the property, yes, in this case, but it's not related itself with an exit tax. The wealth tax, usually it's applicable, and here on this slide we can see this, which is, let's say, the last point, the additional IMI, which is related to properties that has a valuation higher than 100,000. Okay, so it depends how much the Portuguese state evaluate the house on the tax authorities. We will be able to figure it out how much will be the percentage applicable on this wealth tax. But as you can see on this very last topic on this slide, there is no higher taxation involved. So we are speaking about 0.7%, 1%, 1.5% above 2 million. So it's not, let's say, higher taxation. But basically, it's these two main questions that many people are asking us in many of the tax consultations that we are doing on a daily basis. There is as well, as I said before, there is as well some tax benefits that it can be explored, such as the youth taxation for individuals under 35 years old. It's possible to be applicable for a tax saving related to the young income kind of benefit, and that is still available a little bit more, let's say, strict to get the new NHR, which is, let's say, commoning, say, NHR 2.0, which has replaced the previous program. The NHR, it's the non-habitual resident regime, which is applicable for high value kind of individuals, people that are working in important areas such as innovation and IT development, or people that are working to such of this kind of companies registered here in Portugal. So at the moment, the main requirement, in fact, it need to be a Portuguese entity. Okay, so in the past it was not needed to be a Portuguese entity, but need to be at the moment. Yes, of course, that this person need to have as well meet some requirements itself. But it's not only the person itself need to be eligible as well. The part of the company need to be registered in the particular form, a startup, for example, or a high value kind of activity company. So we need to figure it out more carefully compared to before. And those are pretty much the ones that people are looking for a lot related to Portugal itself. However, for people that doesn't qualify for any of it, of course, the part of the freelancing activity offers as well some opportunities. For example, 50% discount on the taxable income on the first year and Social Security exemption. And on the second year, for example, the discount, it's not 50%, it's 25%. It's a little bit reduction. But anyway, on the first and second year, there is some tax incentives for people that want to move to Portugal and set themselves as a freelancers. Okay, this is possible, of course, to combine with the NHR 2.0, and it's possible as well to combine with the youth tax benefit. Okay, so the reason I am saying this, it's for someone that doesn't meet all of the requirements to benefit from these particular programs. There is some possibility to have some tax reductions. Okay, that's why I am mentioning this. Then, of course, there is some real estate taxation regarding the property tax and the municipality tax, but mainly regarding the part of Portuguese taxation, it's this. In Portugal, we have a tax bracket that goes from 14% to 48. So there is a lot of 8 levels of brackets to determine which is the applicable taxes for some people that are not meeting the requirements for the NHR 2.0 or the youth tax benefits. And capital gains usually are taxable at a flat rate of 28%. Okay, so Portugal has multiple conventions with many countries, such as United States, which at the moment we are facing a lot of people looking from this particular location. And yes, we just need to understand and to put in place the considerations under the double taxation agreements to have a better understanding how people can benefit fully from this relocation to Portugal. But there is multiple options that it can be explored. This is the final note that I want to give to you all, because again, once we are doing a tailored service regarding to this particular part, we can explore which are the best tax benefit, and of course with our Spanish team, which also we can try to figure it out which will be the best country fitting any of you. Okay, so Portugal and Spain, of course, are at the moment one of the most countries that people are looking to relocate with. Not only because of the good weather, but as well because there is a lot of people that speaks at least a good level of English. So many people are looking to one of those locations. Anyway, if you have any further questions, feel free to add all of those on the Q&A section. I will be glad to reply to all of it. I'm sorry to was a little bit faster on this, but anyway, if you need any further clarification, please let me know.
Thank you so much, Daniel. It gives a very good overview and shows that there's potentially tax incentives or tax schemes that people might not have thought of. And so, as you said, it can vary depending on the individual. It's always a good idea to speak to you, see what works in Portugal. If Spain might be a better option for the person, then you can pass them over to the Spanish side of your team. So that is really helpful. Maria, we are going to get into taxes in Spain. To me, this seems more complicated. Maybe it's just because I'm more familiar with what happens in Portugal. But there seem to be a lot of different laws, some of them named after celebrities. So maybe you could talk us through what each of those mean and what they involve.
Yeah, for sure. Just to make the comparison with Daniel, okay, in Spain, you will be considered tax resident in case you remain more than 6 months in the country during a natural year, okay? Or if you have the vital and economic ties in Spain, which means, for example, sometimes that if you have the family here and you move back and forth from one country to another, in principle, if you cannot be considered a tax resident in another country, you should be considered tax resident in Spain. Based on that, we have 2 different regimes. The first one is the ordinary regime, which applies to anyone who is moving to Spain, okay, and you pay taxes for the worldwide employment income. We have 2 bases in Spain, the ordinary one, I would say like the general one and the savings one. The general one is up to 50%, and the savings one is from 19 to 30%. It's true that we apply the dual taxation agreement, which means that, of course, if any US citizen has to pay taxes as well in the US, we review the dual taxation agreement and we see if Spain has a right to tax. And in the case US as well, we apply a tax credit. Saying that, what is also important thing here is about the beneficial regime we have here, or the main advantage we have in terms of tax benefit, which is the most commonly known the Beckham law. Okay, this Beckham law regime, it's for people who move to Spain for work purposes. Okay, which means that you need to move to Spain to work. It's true that from 2023, some government amendments open these also to digital nomads. Okay, but only for employees. I will explain you, I would say, okay, in a general view, because there are a lot of requirements. But the three main requirements is you need to not have been considered tax resident in the last 5 years. You need to move to Spain because of a job purpose, before was working as an employee of a Spanish company or director of a Spanish company. Okay. The other alternative should be work remotely from Spain, okay, as an employee of a foreign company, but through the exclusive IV methods, okay, which means that you cannot close deals on behalf of the company. You cannot have more than 25% of participation in a company, because otherwise you are not in a position of subordination. And at the same time, you cannot have management, okay, or a management role in the company, which means like you cannot take relevant decisions from the company from Spain. So a current employee, okay, if you are a current employee that you can work remotely from Spain just through your laptop or mobile, you can be eligible for the Beckham. And the last one, which is the most complicated one, the requirement, complicated to explain, but I will try just to say one sentence. It's you cannot create a permanent establishment risk for a foreign company. Otherwise, you will be automatically excluded. The Beckham law regime, it's applicable for 6 years. Okay, you need to apply within the 6 months, within the first 6 months since your or social security registration in Spain as an employee, or the start date indicated in the certificate of coverage that allows you to work remotely from Spain. Okay, this is in order to continue maintaining the social security contributions in the home country instead of Spain. Sorry to go faster, but I would try to cover everything. But of course, you can cut me. For the Beckham law, which is also important, it's from 2023. Not only the main applicant can apply, also the family members, if certain requirements are met. I think the main benefits, which is of course the most important, it's you pay taxes for the worldwide employment income up to 600,000 euros, only the flat tax rate of 24%. Okay, for worldwide employment income and Spanish properties. Okay, the rest of the income, private income, it's only taxed if it's located in a Spanish territory, which means that any property abroad, investments abroad are not taxed under the Beckham law. Only Spanish private assets. This is also important and of course really beneficial. And I think also the most important also it's for the wealth tax. In Spain, under the Beckham law regime, you only pay taxes also for Spanish assets. I think the main difference here regarding the wealth tax is that as an ordinary regime, in Spain, you pay taxes for the worldwide net assets that you have, okay? So the balances of everything that you had in any country, it will pay taxes in Spain as a wealth. Is an annual tax return, same as the personal income tax. We have two. We have the personal income tax and we have the wealth tax. Same deadline, which is true that depends on the autonomous community where you are living, the exemption is different, okay? Just in order you can compare, for example, in Andalusia and in Madrid, it's 3.7 million net wealth, okay? That you have to pay this wealth tax if you're exceeding that amount. But for example, in Valencia is 1 million, and in Catalonia, for example, is 500,000 euros. It's true that there are some assets that are exempt, but it should be analyzed case by case, as Daniel said, you know, like this is general information, but it always depends on the context. We need to analyze case by case for personal income tax, for Beckham law regime, but also for the wealth tax, because sometimes we can also apply some exemptions. Saying that, I think the only thing I am missing, and correct me, James, if I'm wrong, it's regarding the real estate taxation. I think that the main difference with Portugal, the other ones are the transfer tax are similar, also the municipality tax, but we also have for ordinary residents a presumed income that you pay based if it's a Spanish property on the cadastral value, or if it's a foreign property, sorry, on the acquisition value. It's a presumed income that you pay for properties that are empty, which is or not rented out or not considered your main residence. You also need to pay a small tax on that, on the personal income tax. I think this is not common in the rest of the countries. That's the reason why I want to point out. It's not a lot, of course, but it's also important to consider. Let me know, James, if do you want me to maybe go more in deep in something?
There was just one question I had. I don't know if you mentioned it was the wealth tax, does that apply to everywhere in Spain, or is that for specific regions, and does it vary depending on the region?
Yeah, it's depending on the region where you are living. The thing here, it's depend on the region. The tax relief is completely different. And that's the reason why the Spanish government put the solidarity tax as well, just to wealthy people, which is people with more than 3.7 million of euros, have to pay the wealth tax or the solidarity tax. But in this case, it's the same if you are, of course, exceeding that net wealth. But it still depends on the autonomous community where you are living. It's completely different, the taxes that you have to pay. The tax rates are quite similar, okay, but not the amount, like that you have to pay. The tax rates from 0.2% to 3.5%, but it's an annual wealth tax. And it's true that usually what we recommend to everyone who wants to move to Spain, which have, like savings, important savings, to make a tax planning before, because sometimes it's really important to decide the region based on that. So yeah, I think it's important to analyze as well.
Okay, fantastic. That is really, really helpful and gives people an excellent idea of what's involved in taxes there. Let's jump very quickly onto citizenship because we are just on 6 p.m. here. So we'll run through this. Let's do Portugal first. And we will get Marta back on to discuss how long it takes to obtain Portuguese citizenship once you move here on a visa like the D7 or the digital nomad visa, and also whether dual citizenship is allowed.
Okay. So yes, Portugal allows dual citizenship, but that doesn't mean you will automatically have it. It is necessary to confirm that your own country allows dual citizenship. In terms of timelines, up until now, we discussed the visa categories. The immigration process is mainly divided into stages. The first, obtaining the visa at the home country, and on that note, a home country can either be citizenship country or residence country as long as you legally live there, so with a proper residence permit. And once the visa is issued, you move for the second stage of the Portuguese immigration process, which is applying for the residence permit already in Portugal. These residence permits will be issued for 2 years. It is the temporary and the initial permit. Once the expiration date comes in, you need to renew it, and the renewal permit, still the temporary one, will be valid for 3 years. After holding the permits for 5 years, so the first with 2 and the second with 3 years, you can and now move for the citizenship or the permanent residence permit, the permanent residence. The permanent residence will be valid for 5 years. Your question in particular, citizenship. So it's 5 years and now, and you can actually consider has from the moment you submit the application. So let's imagine that I had already processed my visa application. Yesterday, 1st of October, I entered in Portugal with my visa. And tomorrow, this never happened, but for you to understand, tomorrow, 3rd of October, I have an appointment for the residence permit. Now, the timeline for the citizenship requests starts as from the moment of the submission of the residence permit. So the 5 years period will be considered as from the 3rd of October when I do have an appointment. Though, providing that I have the proof of submission. So when you submit this, always keep this document with you. However, and unfortunately, the Portuguese government has been discussing about the change of this timeline. How would this look like? The suggestions from the government was to change from 5 years, that now applies to every foreign citizen, to 10 years if it is a third country national, or 7 years if it is a CPLP country. What is a CPLP country? It is countries where their mother language is also Portuguese. For example, Brazil, Angola. Those citizens of those countries will be able to request the citizenship after 7 years, while U.S. citizens, for example, it is 10 years. And the reason I mentioned from where it starts the timeline for the citizenship request, it's because under the new suggestions from the government, this will also change. No longer from the residence permit appointment, but rather actually from the issuance date of the permit that will be reflected on the card itself. This was not yet approved. It was suggested by authorities back in July, among with other changes for the foreign law. They have been focusing on the changes of the foreign law, not yet moving forward with the suggestions for the citizenship. Initially, they stated they will come back to it in October. We are already in October, and only now they are discussing the change for the foreign law. So I do expect to have news about this, and if it's the threshold will change or not in November or December this year.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that. Thanks so much for that, Marta. Let's jump on to Spain. So, Sylvia, I know that it takes 10 years, I think, but it seems a little more complicated, particularly when it comes to dual citizenship. Can you talk me through it?
I will try my best. Well, Spanish government asked for to obtain. Well, we have there is several ways to obtain the Spanish citizenship. The most ordinary one, when we are talking about foreign people, is that they become Spanish national because they've been living legally in Spain for a period of time. Okay. Some other ways are more peculiar, okay? But the ordinary way to obtain Spanish citizenship is through residency. So the general time frame, we are talking about 10 years, okay? But our normative contemplates a lot of reductions to those period that goes to 2 years. That is the most used for the kind of immigration that we are receiving, that it normally they come from Hispano-America, from the south of America. So we have dual citizenship agreements. So for those people who can demonstrate that they have a citizenship from one of those countries, including Brazil, okay, even that they are not talking Spanish, they will be only needed 2 years of legal residency. So it's a high reducement from 10 to 2 years. When I mention this, because often we are finding citizens who have North American nationality, citizenship, but they also hold a dual Mexican or Argentinian citizenship also. In that case, even that the papers here in Spain of residency are taken with the American nationality, they are eligible to the reduced term of 2 years. The thing is here is that they will need to duplicate the file somehow, showing that both citizenships. So if one of the documental requirement is to provide, when we are talking about adults, okay, where to provide the criminal records of the country, okay, in this case, you will need to show both the Mexican and the American, okay? I'm just giving an example because I think that little examples sometimes put us easier to understand the concept, okay? So a part of the period of reducement of 2 years for those who have a nationality from one of the countries, which Spain has a dual citizenship, there is a period of reduce of 1 year, 1 year. only 1 year. So we are giving the Spanish citizenship very easily in case that you are linked to a Spanish citizen. Okay, here we are talking about marriage, or that you have a kid here in Spain, okay, who is been born in Spain with 1 year of legal residency of that minor, okay, it will be eligible to obtain a Spanish citizenship that it's a European citizenship, okay. That's for the basics. Dual citizenship, when we are talking about, okay, I do not have another Latin American nationality, so to get the 2 years reducement, or I have to wait 10 years. I'm from the UK, I'm from North America. I want to apply for Spanish citizenship because I love this country and I want to stay here forever. Well, here the main concern is that our normative, okay, expressly says when you obtain Spanish citizenship, if you're from a country that doesn't have any dual citizenship agreement with Spain, that is most of the countries of the world, okay, you have to express that you renounce to your own citizenship, okay? And that's it. It appears in the document. It's how it works, okay? But here it's when it comes to things that people, it's like the head explodes because it's a little bit hard to understand. That in the practice, Spain as a country doesn't have any power to take your citizenship of other country out, because Spain only has power for the citizenships of their state, for Spanish citizens. Okay, Spanish government is passport. Even that I've got mine at home. Okay, this is doesn't belong to me. It comes with my name and everything. It's property of the Spanish government. Okay. So on the paper, okay, and with the law and the normative that we have now, okay, Spain cannot take out your citizenship. It's your country. You have to go to deep, you know, to dig in your own normative of your country, what it says about obtaining a second or third citizenship. Okay, so when it comes in the practice, there is people with 2, 3, 4 passports. Okay, it's complicated. You have to manage a lot of the nationalities, and you have to switch from one to the other depending on what kind of relation you are having as a citizen with your government. Okay, so if you are in Spain, you are Spanish. If you hold a Spanish citizenship, when you move abroad, because you go back to your country of origin, you will not have to forget that you're still Spanish. Okay, so you have to register yourself in front of the Spanish consulate so you can vote, you can do things in front of the Spanish administration. Okay, it's only few countries who are very clear in their legislation that the mere obtention of a second citizenship excludes them from their own citizenship, even if they have them from birth. Okay, it's not the case of the UK. It's not the case of America, North America. Having said so, the law is something that it's alive. We cannot put the law and the life, put it in the box. Okay, it's how things work for many years from now, and that's still working, but I cannot guarantee that that is going to happen in the future. Why? Because we are advancing to a world that is hyper connected, that countries will have the capacity of sharing information. Right now, they are compiling that information. Little by little, they will put it in use. And as long as the states, the countries are losing their own power as a countries in favor of multinationals and some other agents that they are coming into, they can use that as a tool. We have the example of Nicaragua, okay, that they are treating their threaten their citizens to taking out the citizenship of Nicaragua if they obtain a second nationality. So it's a tool that the country can use, sometimes in favor, but that doesn't imply that it can be used in a negative purpose. So the thing is that to adapt to their circumstances and to have a medium long-term view. But there is things that we cannot assure 100% because it's not in our hands. Okay, but I think that we all are detecting and seeing that the things are moving very fast, and it's not something that is happening only here in Madrid, in my house, to me. I think that everyone are feeling that, and it's the reality. Okay, so we have to adapt. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Sylvia. That is really helpful, and thank you to everybody. Thank you to Maria. Thank you to Danielle. Thank you to Marta. This has been very, very informative. What I would say is, if you have a question that we haven't got to yet, definitely get in touch with moviinn. They are clearly the best people to answer this. They have a wealth of knowledge on both countries in all categories. I'll be sending out the link to the web form again if you haven't already filled it in, and I will be sending out a recording of this as well because I know there was a lot of complex information in there. Anybody who asked a question, we went over time. We had a lot of information in there, so we didn't get to everyone's questions. I will make sure they get passed on to moviinn as well so that they can answer those questions directly and get in touch with you with an answer so that you know the answer to that. But thank you so much to everybody at moviinn. It's been really, really helpful, and hopefully get you back again soon to maybe go deeper into one of those topics like taxes, citizenship, dual citizenship in Spain sounded very, very interesting. So thank you for that, and hopefully see everybody again soon.